Um, so my first one is if awareness is the fabric of everything, that means it would make living things like humans and animals.
It wouldn't make...
It would be the fabric of living things like humans and animals,
Yeah.
but also inert things like the chair. So does that make awareness alive or does it make it dead?
So let's go back to Mary and Jane. You know Mary and Jane well. So Mary's mind, infinite consciousness, is one seamless, infinite whole made out of pure knowing, pure awareness. And in order to manifest the potential that lives within it, it has to divide itself in two, as we've previously said, a subject that knows and an object that is known. Are you with me so far? So awareness it's pure. Another way of describing awareness would be aware being, or the presence of that which is aware. So awareness is knowing, but it also is. Yeah? It exists. So when awareness divides itself into a subject that knows and an object that is known, it gives its knowing aspect to the subject, Jane, and it gives its existence aspect to the object. So knowing being, in my early books, you'll read them one day probably, I used to write knowing being as one word to indicate that aware being, that awareness and existence were one indivisible thing. So I would write them knowing being. And the spell check on my Apple Mac used to get very upset with me when I did it. So, but in order for this seamless consciousness existence, written all one word, knowing being, written all one word, in order for it to manifest, consciousness and existence have to separate. Jane got consciousness, mind, and the world got existence. So from Jane's point of view, her experience seems to be mind on the inside, the alive, knowing stuff called mind on the inside, and the dead, inert stuff that exists without consciousness, that's matter. The stuff that exists without consciousness is matter. So consciousness, or knowing being, or consciousness existence divided itself into a subject that knows, that it's alive with awareness, that is aware, and existence, which is dead, inert stuff called matter. And that's why, from Jane's point of view, everything that is on the inside of her is alive with awareness, and the world she sees on the outside of her is just dead matter that exists. But when she wakes up, she realized that actually consciousness and existence were never separate. Consciousness and existence cannot be separated. There isn't something called existence without consciousness.
Does that make us not exist? I mean, are we just knowing and not existence?
No, because knowing, for there to be knowing must exist. So existence is inherent in knowing. You can't have knowing without, because knowing exists, otherwise there would be no knowing. But what we imagine is that there is something called existence by itself, independent of knowing. In other words, we separate, we think that the knowing self, what I am, and the existent world, what it is, we think they are separate. And that is the great discovery, in fact, the essence of the non-dual teaching in all the traditions is that the consciousness that we are and the existence that the world is are the same. In the Christian tradition, there is this saying, "I and my Father are one." It means that what I essentially am, consciousness, and the ultimate reality of the world, existence, are the same. And I'm sure later at some stage you'll read Indian philosophy, you'll read Ramana Maharshi and Nisargadatta and Atmananda. These people, there's a phrase in Indian philosophy that is roughly equivalent to the Christian Trinity, Sat, Chit and Ananda. Sat means existence, Chit means consciousness, and Ananda means peace or happiness. And the great discovery of this tradition was that existence, consciousness and happiness are the same experience. But from the point of view of each of our minds, consciousness and existence are separated. And with that separation, the third aspect of reality, happiness, disappears. That is why there is never happiness when, from the point of view of self and other, knowing and existence. It's only when these two are recognized to be one. In other words, it's only when there is non-duality, not two, that the happiness aspect of reality is experienced. In other words, consciousness is prior to and at the same time the reality of both that which lives and that which seems to be inert. Just as Mary's mind is the reality both of Jane's thoughts and feelings and the tarmac on the streets of Paris. They're both made out of the same stuff, although from Jane's point of view, what's on the inside of her seems to be alive, and the streets of Paris seem to be dead.
Okay.